And I am very excited to welcome a panel of representatives from the Shepherd Center of America. And so I would like to welcome to the stage now our panel members. And we've got, let's see, Carolyn, and we got everybody. And I think we had um, Travis coming on board there. There, I think we've got our all of our panel now on the screen. So, welcome everybody. I have really been looking forward to this discussion, and you all are going to help us understand all about the Shepherd Center. And I think we're going to meet each of the people on the stage here. But our first person is Sarah Cheney, who is the executive director of the Shepherd Center of America. And then we're going to get to meet some local and regional offices and find out what you all are doing. So, Sarah, why don't you kick things off here? And first off, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into what the Shepherd Centers are. And if I could ask, uh, if you're not speaking, just mute your mic, and that'll minimize our interference here. So, um, Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into the Shepherd Centers.
Well, thank you, Steve, and good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to join you today on Zoom. I am the executive director with Shepherd Centers of America, and it's hard to believe, but I have been here for 10 years. You can probably guess that by the younger picture that was provided with the promo. Prior to the executive director with Shepherd Centers of America, I actually served on the board of SCA. So I have been involved with this organization for about 17 years. And prior to that, I worked as a collaborator with Shepherd Centers of America through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation's National Faith in Action Initiative. So it's been a long time, but I guess it doesn't feel very long when you love what you do.
I love
But
it.
let me start at the beginning and tell you a little bit about what Shepherd Centers of America is and about the philosophy of Shepherd Centers. The first Shepherd Center is in Kansas City, Missouri, and that's where SCA is based. However, you can probably guess by my accent that I'm not in Missouri. I'm actually located in North Carolina, and we had virtual offices long before the pandemic. But the first Shepherd Center in Kansas City is actually celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. So we have 5 decades of experience. And it all started with our founder, Elbert Cole, who was a minister at a large United Methodist church in the city. He was seeing and hearing from a lot of people in his congregation and from the community that they really wanted to experience more out of retirement. And Elbert was thinking a lot of these same things because he was nearing retirement age too. So, traditional, I guess, Cole fashion, he was very much a go-getter. He pulled together a community planning team to review the shared values of things like wellness, interfaith and interracial cooperation, helping neighbors, and giving back to society. What this group came up with was a new approach and a new organization that met a range of needs of retired adults. And this model, of course, was a Shepherd Center. Success was really pretty immediate, and communities in other states quickly began reaching out to Elbert Cole to ask him to help them launch a Shepherd Center in their community. So in 1974, he opened Shepherd Centers of America with the purpose of developing training programs for community groups so that they could pull together boards and volunteers and funding to start their new center. Today, our programs promote solutions for a wide range of activities that help older adults remain productive and independent, and importantly, stay connected to their community. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Absolutely. There we go.
The reason that I think that our history is important is because it highlights essential principles that are at the heart of Shepherd Centers, which are empowerment and inclusion. And these were pretty radical and new concept for the times. Remember, this was back in 1972. And the fact that older adults were doing this for themselves, that they were designing programs with and for each other and reaching out to others to join and collaborate with them, was novel. In SCA's mission statement, we highlight that services are designed by, with, and for older adults who want to live independently in the community. And we know that this creates a deep level of engagement that keeps older adults connected and their needs are met as they age. So, for example, it's not uncommon for individuals to be involved with a Shepherd Center for 30 or more years. They might come to a Shepherd Center to attend a class or maybe to volunteer, but as they age, they might need more help, and so they then might become a passenger with a volunteer driver. We also have people who talk about Shepherd Center as their second or third career, working, really that's volunteering, for 20 to 30 years with a Shepherd Center. Another aspect really at the heart of what we do and what kind of sets us apart is that we're built on the concept of community collaboration. We say that we don't like to compete with other services that are available, but we want to complement or fill the niche where that isn't being filled. And we also believe that our services aren't a program of any one agency or congregation, but it is the community working together. And again, a great example of this, I think, is the growth of how Shepherd Centers developed in the DC area. Shepherd Center of Northern Virginia was the first in the region, but the first Shepherd Center in Virginia is actually in Richmond. But I love how one of the founders of Shepherd Center of Northern Virginia, John Tate, describes how their center is a grandparent. They were birthed, and then they helped to birth Shepherd Center of Fairfax Burke. And then Shepherd Center of Fairfax Burke helped to birth Shepherd Center of Western Fairfax County. So we just love the collaboration. We love the natural growth and expansion of how Shepherd Centers extend to serve their area communities. We're also proud of the fact that no two Shepherd Centers are exactly alike. And that's because each center is created based on the needs and the interests of those older adults. And I know each of the directors are going to share with you more about the specifics of their center services. But what we all have in common is that we're working to help build social connections for older adults. And if we can look at the last slide.
Okay. I think the one that I've got, that's what I've got here. Yeah, these are impressive statistics here.
Yes. And this is working together. These statistics are pre-COVID. We are currently collecting new statistics, but 55,000 older adults are helped with volunteer caregiving services, such as rides to medical appointments or help with small home repairs. And this is all provided at no cost to older adults. 100,000 older adults participate in lifelong learning, which we call Adventures in Learning. And annually, 13,000 volunteers provide 660,000 hours of service. And based on the independent sector's calculation of the value of volunteer time, this equates to $18.8 million that are provided at no cost to individuals, healthcare organizations, or government agencies. You all know better than most that the need and demand for programs that keep older adults healthy and engaged, as well as independent, is unprecedented. And we just continue to build on our 50-year experience to offer enriching opportunities. Things like lifelong learning and volunteer service, healthy living, and community connections, all the things that we believe give life meaning. And if there's a question or two, Steve, I'm happy to take that.
Yeah, okay, let me just dive in here real quick. Because one thing I know, Sarah, you're going to be exiting stage left here pretty soon to get to another meeting. Let's see. Jane Markley asks, is there a Shepherd Center in Maryland? And what are the 17 states that have Shepherd Centers?
There is not a Shepherd Center in Maryland, but it is not from lack of trying. I think that's also a special passion of John Tate's. He has talked with several groups in Maryland, and we'd be happy to talk with anyone who might be interested in getting a Shepherd Center started. The 17 states do range from California to the East Coast, from Texas up to Massachusetts. However, we are primarily located in what's thought of as the Bible Belt, from Missouri kind of down through the South, up through Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. And I think in large part, we're not about being a faith-based organization, but because of our roots. Elbert Cole was a leader in the Methodist Church, and so his contacts were through the Methodist Church tradition. So he would reach out to other congregations, and so that's kind of how we're formed through the Bible Belt, but we are definitely not limited to that.
So it's such a good idea. It's so supportive to the community. It seems like, what could be the roadblock? Like what are the requirements to open a Shepherd Center in Maryland, for example?
That's a really good question, and one that we ask ourselves a lot. We think it's because it is hard work getting that foundation in place, but it's that foundation that really works to sustain a program for the long run. So kind of the building blocks, if you will, is that it is a community effort. So it's not one organization, a ministry sometimes of one organization, but it really is that group working together of congregations and other nonprofit agencies, as well as profit agencies that come together. And then the aspect of empowerment. It's not that an agency is established and then they say, well, we're going to provide these services. It's that idea of empowerment where older adults come together to assess their needs and their wants so that they can provide the services and that the services are meaningful to older adults through that spectrum. So it just takes hard work and planning.
Couple of more questions, and then we'll get to our panel of Shepherd Centers. But the first is from Tony, who says, "Who should we contact to start a Shepherd Center? Who would you like them to reach out to?"
You can reach out to me. My email, or first of all, go to our website, might be easier, at shepherdcenters.org, and you'll see all of our contact information. And we'd love to talk with you about that. Okay.
And then you've sort of talked about the roots in the church, and I know that you all, one of the reasons that you're able to scale up so quickly is by working through faith-based organizations. But just to reiterate something that you said earlier, there is no this is not your vehicle for expansion. Has helped the churches, has helped, but it's not a prerequisite.
Correct. In fact, we say that we are interfaith or of no faith. Proselytizing is prohibited. We are not about influencing anyone to any particular belief. Again, back in 1972, the whole idea is that often people that attended church were more likely to want to volunteer. Today, people find that spiritual meaning in a variety of ways, but they still want to volunteer and give back to their communities. And so Shepherd Centers are a way for them to harness that interest and to help their neighbors.
Great. And I knew this question was going to come in, and it's coming in fast and furious. Janet and Kathleen both say, how do you compare the villages to the Shepherd Center?
So, a Shepherd Center is based on empowerment, and it is based on service as well. So we provide services such as transportation, lighthouse home repairs, as well as that educational piece. And I know that we are very similar to villages. One way that we're different in some communities is that we do tend to reach lower income older adults who might not have any other way to have services. So, for example, a lot of our centers provide Meals on Wheels. They provide critical transportation to dialysis services.
Great. Okay. And then I think I got through all of those questions. So, Sarah, this has been amazing that you were able to join us and provide this broad overview of your organization and how you're helping. And I think after that, it's sort of like, hey, folks, I copied Sarah's contact information into chat, and reach out to her if this is something that's interesting in your community and it's not being served by a Shepherd Center. So with that, let's now dive in and get to know some of the regional Shepherd Centers. And these are, even though this is nationwide, we are spotlighting on Northern Virginia, which is really one of the main regions that we at Positive Aging Community serve. And I'm delighted to kick this off with Carolyn Pennington, who I've known for years in a different role in senior living. And quite frankly, I'll tell you, the reason why we're having this discussion is Carolyn started her job as executive director there at the Shepherd Center of Northern Virginia. And I was providing an introduction to somebody. I went on the website and I opened up the annual report for Shepherd Center of Northern Virginia. And I was just absolutely blown away at the list of services provided, but also the donor community, the people that are contributing to the Shepherd Center to make this a viable organization. It blew me away. So Carolyn, tell us a little bit about the Shepherd Center in Northern Virginia.
Thank you, Steve. Really excited to be here as the executive director and speak with everybody about our center. Just a little bit about myself. Like you said, I've been in the senior living industry for a number of years. And sort of like Sarah's history, I was a sponsor of the Shepherd Center and some of their big fundraisers and foundation events, just because we had a shared mission of serving older adults in this area. And they had done it so successfully and with such quality programming and efforts and volunteers. I was so excited to be a corporate sponsor. And then, over the years, just get more involved, get on the development committee, and then had this opportunity to join on the other side as executive director, and timing aligned and mission aligned. And it was just an opportunity I had to jump at. because they're doing such wonderful things in the community. So here I am as executive director, and I couldn't be more happy to represent this organization. So the excitement that you find and that Sarah was talking about is so true. This organization has been here since 1998. And they do have this quality programming and support services that really integrated the services, the programs, the volunteers, and the corporate and individual sponsors to be all really excited about the common mission of serving older adults and providing quality program and services as people age. One of my heroes, just before we get into some particular programming, if any of you had seen my social media recently, is this volunteer named Estelle. She's 95 years old. She's an active volunteer with our community, and she was providing support services for a social that we had done recently. And she's just going strong, and she loves making a difference in her community. So I say there's tons of ways to volunteer, to get involved, and to really be part of meaningful activity of what the community is doing to serve older adults. But when it comes to particulars of what we're doing, and this may be a distinction between the villages as well, we don't charge a membership fee. Whereas some of the villages, I don't think all, but a large number of them will charge their participants a membership fee. So our services are totally free. We do have a few client requirements, such as independent mobility. People can have walkers or canes. But for our free transportation services, there are a bit of independence to get in and out of a car, but we do provide that. One of our more clever volunteers calls it a gift of a lift. We offer friendly callers, friendly visitors, handy helpers, just again, those programs to help people stay independent as well as connected, which helps with overall health for older adults. We have robust programming that lends itself to community engagement as well as wellness, because we know, especially now, that isolation is not healthy. Well, as Sarah had pointed out, Albert Cole was visionary in knowing this back from the 70s, that having isolation from the community was not good. So we do have caregiver support groups, the Adventures in Learning, book clubs, active aging, exercise, socials, and other ways for older adults to be engaged with programs. As a nonprofit, volunteer-led organization, a lot of these, or most of these programs, are run by the volunteers. And so we also say we have a vast array of volunteer opportunities for wherever people find their skill set or where they may have a heart to serve. They may not have that desire to drive, but their skill set is in organization or administration or in editing or writing. There are places for people to participate. A lot of people come up to us and say, I like to do special events. I like to do parties, or wherever that may be. So in all of our Shepherd Center, you will find, I think, opportunities to reach out to whatever location you happen to be in to make a difference in the community and align with a mission that really speaks to you and is very meaningful to you. Lastly, I would say as a nonprofit, we all depend on individuals, sponsorships, partnerships, and some creative ways to do fundraising and support for our communities that do, again, serve older adults and keep those centers running. So it's just a real pleasure and honor to be here representing this center. And
This is great. Yeah, no. And so now Shepherd Center of Northern Virginia, this office serves Oakton, Vienna, Dunloring, Reston, Herndon, Great Falls. Um, uh, correct. And then now we're going to move to another regional office. Is that what you call them, regional offices, or how do you, or just another Shepherd Center?
An area office.
Okay.
Yep.
So now this one is for Fairfax, Burke, and South County. And the executive director there is Rhiannon Duck. But before we, so Rhiannon, for you, and maybe this is for all the panel members, how do you distinguish these territories? Like, is there sort of a metrics related to population, or I'm kind of curious about that.
Speak to that a little bit. I'm a native Fairfax original, so I've lived here my whole life. Fairfax County is the largest county in Virginia. We have over 1 million residents, and we are 416 square miles. So we are gigantic. And if you are, I'm looking in the chats, I know some of you are not from this area. So it can take you 2 hours to get from Reston to Alexandria, which is just a nightmare. And for a transportation program, we broke into what I consider like almost like boroughs, if you think of it in a New York City kind of way, for transportation services, because it would just be too much for a volunteer to go from Herndon, Virginia to Mount Vernon, Virginia. And for those of you that share my native roots, you know exactly what I mean. So
and actually, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think one of your slides here sort of shows the region, and these are the different offices or centers. So we just met Carolyn with Shepherd Center of Northern Virginia, and now we're talking to Shepherd Center of Fairfax, Burke, and South County. But we'll meet the others here.
Well, actually, if you don't mind leaving that map for a second, I'll speak a little to it, because so you can kind of see. So Fairfax Burke is kind of the center, kind of like the middle of where those lines intersect there. And you see it at Fairfax Burke, and then South County, is totally on the other end of kind of that little Lorton. You can kind of make out that word Lorton, that part that comes down kind of like a peninsula at the end there. So you can see, if you had to go all the way to Great Falls, if you were a volunteer, you wouldn't want to you just wouldn't want to do that. So I think it kind of naturally regionally broke into, like I said, kind of boroughs, to make it more palatable for the volunteers for transportation purposes. So that speaks a little bit to that. And also I'll do a call back on the villages. I've worked with the villages for the county for a while. I've worked for the county for a number of years before I got here. And the villages also kind of tend to stay more locally oriented within neighborhoods. Oftentimes the concept was within blocks of each other, where that works really well in a dense urban environment. But with a suburban environment, it's a little harder to make those connections and establish those kind of grassroots within. Some of the villages have done it very successfully, and those villages that do tend to be in more urban areas. But if there's more questions, I can speak to that later. But anyway, I too, as a Shepherd Center, we provide free transportation to medical appointments and grocery shopping. We consider grocery shopping errands as well, rides to the post office, to the bank, to get your hair cut if you need to. We do that service within our Fairfax Burke area. We too offer the handy helpers. We do a caregiver support group. We've paused that during the pandemic, and are connected really well with the county, who also offers a family caregiver support group. So I share a lot of that information using what's already been established. We too offer the Adventures in Learning and the Lunch and Lives, which I call like an opportunity for fellowship and socialization. You know, socialization and is important to combat isolation. We know that's a big thing for older adults. So that's something we kind of follow along with the paradigm prescribed by the SHAPE and the Older Adults Plan by Fairfax County. So we do all of that. We've paused our in-person stuff as part of the pandemic. We are hopeful for maybe this summer. We're watching carefully, but as of now, we're not in person, but we are still helping with our handy helpers and our medical transportation. During the pandemic, we also gave connected folks with volunteers that could go to food banks and bring the groceries to them directly if they had been quarantined or isolated. So we work directly along the side with the county to do that as well. We are almost entirely comprised of volunteers. We have very small staff. So we are very reliant on our volunteer base, which is wonderful and amazing. They are very, very participatory. Our board is as well. We have a variety of donors as well. We have several different interfaith organizations. We have community organizations that participate with us. We've recently partnered with 2 new community support service organizations, one being Service Source. I am located at Little River Glen, which is one of the senior centers in Fairfax County. And we partnered with Service Source, who opened a wellness center for older adults here on the campus. So hopefully in March, they'll be open, and we will have a variety of new opportunities to offer older adults, such as computer labs. There'll be a nurse on campus for blood pressure checks, and there'll be some lifelong learning opportunities. It'll be a really wonderful opportunity for older adults. We'll be providing transportation to adults that want to attend. And that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Great. Okay, so let's meet another center, and that is going to be Barbara Ghetorian, who is with the Annandale Springfield Shepherd Centers.
Thank you, Steve. A little bit about myself. When I had retired a number of years ago, I started to volunteer for the Shepherd Center. I honestly had no idea what a Shepherd Center was. They were just very close to where I lived, and I thought I could help out in some way. Within a couple of years, I ended up being the office director as a paid employee, because I loved the opportunity to help the senior citizens in our area. I since left that position and became a member of the board. I'm currently the board chair. And as it turned out, I'm back to volunteering again. And we do not have an office director at this moment. So I'm also filling in as the office director. So if you call the Shepherd Center of Annandale Springfield, you might end up talking to me as I'm answering the phones and helping out. And I do that because I love the mission. I love talking to the older people in our neighborhood that are calling in for rides. We feel that the transportation area is our primary focus. And we have not let up during the pandemic. We felt that even though there was this nasty virus out there, people needed to get to the doctor. They needed to get to the dentist or cancer treatments or physical therapy. So that did not let up. We were very fortunate that when some of the older drivers did not want to drive, that some of the younger drivers stepped up and took their place. So during this time, we were very fortunate to get some more volunteer drivers. We also feel that the socialization is very important. We do have what we call Lunch and Life. We started up again in June of last year. We We wanted to be able to, for those people that still drive, to get them out of their house, even if it's just for an hour and a half, to get a nice lunch and chit chat with people that they hadn't seen in some time. They were so happy to get back together that the first lunch in life, when I stood up there and I welcomed everybody back, they stood up and cheered. They were so happy to get back together again. So we have very interesting lunches, very good speakers or entertainers, and that is our second focus. We do have the other services that the other Shepherd Centers do on maybe a smaller scale, but we feel everything is just as important. I do want to let you know our area had expanded a little bit from just Annandale and Springfield into parts of Alexandria. We service Kingstown and Franconia areas as well, and getting in this area closer up to where the Woodrow Wilson Bridge is. So we had to recruit more drivers to handle the extra area. And we were very fortunate that people stepped up and accommodated the people that live there. We can always use more drivers. And
Barbara and all the people on the call, I believe, and I could be wrong on this, that your drivers, are you working in partnership with the NV Rides program, or is this self-contained and part of the Shepherd Center?
We all work with NV Rides, and NV Rides does send volunteers our way. The volunteers are segmented out to where they live. And so if somebody lives in Annandale or Springfield, they send them my way. If they live in Fairfax or Burke, they send them to the other Shepherd Center. So we do get volunteers that way too.
And if you're if you're on the call and you're not familiar with the NV Rides program or the Village Rides program or the Neighbor Rides program, these are regional volunteer rides programs, and we're going to be spotlighting them next week. So make sure that you tune in to that discussion. Those programs work very well in partnership with organizations like the Shepherd Center, as well as community centers and other things like that.
And we reward our volunteers once a year by having a volunteer appreciation luncheon, in which we have some very nice entertainment, and they get to come for a free lunch, and that will be happening very soon.
Great.
But that's our
okay,
nutshell.
Excellent. So let's see. Next on the list, I've got Carol Edelstein, who's with the McLean Arlington Falls Church Shepherd Center. But before we jump into Carol, and maybe Carol, this is one way that you might even kick this off, because I see it's on your list of services as well. Robin Hall asked, can you speak about the handy helpers in a little bit more detail? What do these handy helpers provide?
Sure. Thank you, Steve. And hi, everybody. That's a great question. The handy helpers for our center, and I imagine it's similar to the rest, are folks that, kind of like my husband, is a handy around the house and able to help out with minor home situations. I don't know, light bulbs, hanging a picture. It's not doing heavy work, but it really does help the need of many of the clients that we have. That's sort of, well, let me back up a little bit, because there may be more questions about handy helper. For us, it's that simple, and it really meets a need for a small number of our clients. The background for me, and I think, Steve, I have known you in a variety of ways over the years. I worked for Sunrise Senior Living for over 20 years, and so grew very, very close to this mission of supporting and helping seniors. And I was in the operations area. So when I retired 6 years ago, I wanted to continue in some way connecting with older adults. And somewhere I went along the way, picked up the brochure from McLean Arlington Falls Church, and off I went. So I continue to volunteer drive with them, as well as serve on the board and do everything else that's needed. One of the differences that I wanted to mention to the group of listeners today for us is I believe, are the only center in this group here that is 100% volunteer. That includes board, executive director, everybody. And although that's wonderful, it also presents some challenges. So our number one ask is always trying to find more volunteers. And, it's part of this business, so to speak. A little interesting fact, I thought, since we primarily focus on transportation, I think each region decides what the older adults in their region needs. And that seemed to be the need that our region has of Arlington, McLean, and Falls Church, which on the map you can see kind of upper right area is a sizable area. So many people were not able to drive. So that's our primary focus. And just for anybody on this call who likes numbers, 75% of our rides are for medical therapy, physical therapy, dental, that sort of thing. 25% for groceries. Now that number grew during COVID. Obviously, a lot of folks were not able to get groceries. So we took them to the store, as well as delivered groceries, got them to the food bank, whatever was needed, so that they would get the food that they need. And really, it's about 1%, a little bit less, that's handy helpers. So that gives you an idea of where the need in our particular region is. Our volunteer profile might be interesting to some of you folks. 65 is the average age of our volunteer. Now, I think that's skewed a little bit lower right now, quite honestly, because like you, Barbara, we picked up a lot of younger volunteers through the pandemic, thankfully. And I think that skewed us a little lower, because it seems most are in my age of lower 70s and some a little bit older. And the client average, which probably is similar to those on this call, is about 78 years old. We've got some 100 and some 90s, like some of you have as well. So that's always interesting. And we serve about 100, a little over 100 clients, and we work with a base of about 130 volunteers. Although active volunteers, there's always, I'm sure you all will agree, there's always like that 15, 20 that are always driving, right? And the rest every now and then. And the area of sort of financial support, again, differs a little bit, I guess, because we are 100% volunteer. But we have just a wonderful supportive group of clients. 40% of our donations each year comes from our clients or our drivers. And I think that's really impressive. Another 40% comes from area congregations. So we have nice support there as well, and a couple of small businesses, and 15% from some local grants, 5% from community organizations. So that's always, a big need for us, is to find people who will help financially support us. So, I know time is of the essence, Steve, and since we primarily do transportation, and I think I've made that one clear, I would say the two goals for our chapter would be to get the word out. And hopefully those of you who are listening will help us continue to get the word out that we're here, free services. And that's a hard thing to come by. So I hope you'll send some of your clients or some of your peers, whoever might either need a ride or be willing to drive our way. And the big one is always volunteers. So anywhere we can find them. Thank you in advance for any of that support.
I love it. And last but certainly not least, we have Travis White, who is with the Clifton, Centerville, Chantilly region, the western region of Fairfax County. Travis, you get to back clean up here, and these people in front of you have pretty much provided a very broad overview of what each of their locations. Is there anything sort of unique or different about the Western Fairfax office? Whoops, let me unmute you, Travis. There you go. There you go.
I am last because we are the newest of the Shepherd Centers in the Fairfax County. I'm one of those third career people that Sarah was talking about earlier, having retired from a career in the Army and later as an insurance agent, and found myself looking for something to do just about the time that the Fairfax Burke Shepherd Center was trying to get some help in Western Fairfax County because they were getting calls for service out here, but their drivers couldn't extend this far out on a regular basis. So we started an organizational effort about the time I started looking for something to do, and I happen to know a couple of people in Fairfax Burke who were participating in that process, and they drugged me along. So we incorporated in late 2015. We started work in February 2016. So you can see that virtually 1/3 of our existence has been under COVID. We don't do all the services that some of our sister Shepherd Centers do because we're frankly co-located with a very active county-sponsored senior center. We're in their facility. We get a lot of our clients that we drive from the population of that center, and we bring a lot of people to that center as well. We focus strictly on transportation, and that's medical transportation, which is about 40% of our workload. And we have an active association with the Western Fairfax Christian Ministry Food Pantry. Originally, we drove people there for their appointments and shopping. In COVID, the food pantry reversed their operation. They didn't bring their clients out. We picked up the food and delivered it to the homes. And we're still doing that, most of them. There's maybe 10, 15% of them want to come in because they have specific food or dietary requirements they want to look at. But as I say, we don't do as many services as some of the other Shepherd Centers. We haven't had the need to. There are some things we'd like to extend to. We have about 330 registered clients, but about 26 volunteer drivers. And we take care of those clients, about 40 individuals in any given month. About 60% of our work is food pantry, is medical appointments, and the other 40 is in support of the food pantries.
Wow. Well, one thing that I'm really impressed with, and again, I spoke to this when I saw Carolyn's annual report, is you all have your statistics down really well, and that I think that is very important, especially in a primarily volunteer-driven organization, in sort of optimizing the directions that you're going and seeing when there are opportunities out there to better serve the community. I know we've got a few, well, I'm going to put up the slide on the contact information for everybody here, but I have a question and we can jump in, and I want also the audience to feel free to jump in as well. But walk me kind of through the experience that if, let's say that, I'm here in Reston, Virginia, and let's say that I just learned about Shepherd Center. I don't really know what it is, but my neighbor told me about it. And so there might be something that I need. I pick up the phone and I call. What is the experience that I can that I would be going through? What are the next steps, and how does this work?
I can start us off, I guess, and we're probably
Sure.
each a little bit different, but we have no office. So, again, 100% volunteer. You would leave a message. Some clients send an email, very few. There just aren't as many tech savvy clients. So they leave a message. We call them right back. One of the ride coordinators, we have a weekly role where that person manages the calls and the requests for the week. And then one of us, I'm one of the groups that goes out and does a personal interview. Again, that may be unique to the rest of you on here, but we do a personal interview with the client and then let them know that they've been accepted. The only reason they wouldn't be is if they perhaps are not able to ambulate to and from the car, in and out of the car, or perhaps.
Let me put the brakes, or let me do a little follow-up question on that one, because I know that was brought up by many of you. So let's pretend that you arrive for the one-on-one and you see that this person has mobility issues. Do you have places that you might refer an individual like that for support?
I can start that, but I certainly hope others will jump in. You know, we give them the Fairfax County or Arlington County number because we found that to be an excellent resource. Usually someone that answers the phone can immediately guide them to the other services that are available. And we know of a few smaller groups that we've gotten to know. So we're able to give them direction and connect them with some resources.
And I definitely want to jump in on top of that, that how different some of the centers can be, because we're fortunate enough to have a staffed office here from 10 to 4 with volunteers. So we have somebody here. So if somebody's calling from Herndon into our center, you're going to get a live person. And we can walk you through how to sign up as a client, what your needs are, sort of more of a phone evaluation, and say, yes, you know, we are absolutely able to support your needs. You can get information on our website, or we can mail you our client application. There's a number of ways to get engaged with our center. And as soon as we have that information, people are able to start scheduling rides right away. Most of our centers do not have a same-day service, and there will be a little bit of a turnaround in getting that person. But once they're a client, we're able to provide that. But like I said, we are fortunate enough to have a fully staffed office during the week, Monday through Friday.
Great. And I just I paused the PowerPoint there because I wanted to cut and paste the contact information into the chat for everybody. Let's I know we're getting close to our to 1 o'clock here. Oh, very close. Let me just we talked a little bit about this earlier in some of the discussions, but talking about the partners, I had brought up NV Rides, but on the screen here are some of the partners that you all are working with. Can you tell us a little bit about how broadly how the Shepherd Center works with partners? And then I do have a question that just came in.
Each chapter or group is going to be working with these individual partners, as some partners provide us with volunteers. And I saw Sarah McGowan, shout out to you earlier. I'm sorry, I forgot to put data on the list, but through working with different associations that get to know us, to get to know our partners, you'll see, Travis's Western Fairfax Christian Ministry that, SC Nova really doesn't have a relationship with, but some of the others we engage with help us with outreach, help us get the message out, not only to individuals, but to the county partnerships, to the corporate partnerships, which are all really important in being ambassadors for the Shepherd Center and helping us with that outreach to the communities in which we serve, and the number of different ways that they're there as a resource. So again, you won't see on there is ElderLink, which is the public-private partnership with Inova. And this is in no means a comprehensive list. This is merely an example of some of the groups that we work with to be a resource for the community.
Great. Because we're right at 1, and of course, like whenever I say it's almost over, then a bunch of questions come in. So let's try to answer some of these questions, and also recognizing that each office is a little bit different. But so the first question is: Are the meals daily? Somebody had brought up about. I think one of you talked about meals. And is there a cost for the meals? Is there a menu that the meals include? So maybe some of you that are involved in pantries and meals can comment on some of those.
Speak for everybody. We don't exactly provide meals. We're not cooking. I am on campus with the senior center. As I think Travis mentioned, I'm adjacent to a senior center. He may be housed in the senior center. That's awesome. I need to come visit you. I live out there. So we don't provide meals per se. That would be Meals on Wheels. That's a separate, actually a Commonwealth-wide agency. You'd want to contact your area, your services for older adults with disabilities through Fairfax County for that. That was a question earlier as well. I'm going to try to speak as fast as I can. If you call Fairfax Shepherd Center or Fairfax Burke, I am connected with a lot of the different county services that provide supplemental social services. I'm able to give you a variety of those numbers. Surely out of just been doing this for so long, I share those numbers that are in Prince William County and in Maryland as well, because I've made colleagues throughout time doing that. So I'm able to do that for you. Shepherd Center itself does not provide meals, but we do mine every other month held a lunch and life, which was a social activity for fellowship. If you are interested in meals, you would want to contact the county for that.
Got it. Let's see. Here's an interesting question. How do your centers handle the insurance issues for possible liability when driving others to appointments?
We have general liability insurance that each center purchases individually. It covers the drivers are responsible, of course, for their own automobile insurance. That's the primary coverage if anything happens. But ours is excess liability, covers them well beyond that.
Great. And then Janet Bullinger says, how did the name Shepherd Center come to be? Of course, we don't have Sarah anymore, but does anybody know the story of the name of your centers?
I'm assuming it's connected to Elbert Cole, but that's a very good question. We should all have that right at the tip of our tongue, but I'm not. Just, I think it's born out of his relationship with his church, and they felt that was the message they wanted to give.
Yeah. And again, to reiterate, the roots are in the church, because there was community in the churches, but it's, as you've all sort of described, that there's not really a faith connection other than, hey, you've been able to develop some great relationships with faith-based organizations to do outreach, recruit volunteers, and recruit folks that can help out. So not surprising, we went over our time today. This has been an amazing discussion. I'm really impressed with what you all are doing and how intentional. And when you just look at that map to see how slowly but surely you've sort of pieced together this regional collaboration that covers all of Northern Virginia, it's really exciting to sort of think about other parts of the country replicating what you've done to support the community so well. And my hat's off to everybody.
Well,
Thanks, Steve.
thank you. It's
Thank you,
great
Steve.
to be here and for this opportunity.
Yeah, and again, thanks to our audience, the great questions. I mean, that's what really gets me charged to wake up in the morning. And I've been, I've done over 200 of these, and I think every morning I wake up and I've got one. I'm like, okay, I hope people are going to ask questions and engage. And so far, we have not done one of these where it was crickets out there. It's just that you all are a great panel, but I'm always just super excited about the community that we've built here of collaboration. The audience makes such a difference, the live audience as well. So as I mentioned, though, this is recorded, and so we'll have the recording up later today for those that want to share it or maybe had to duck off early. Thanks so much, and we will be talking to everybody soon.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.